Okay, so this whole fake news problem online. Well, strap in, folks, because Meta just like threw a bomb into the mix. They're just getting rid of their fact-checking program.
Yeah, and that's like a big deal. It's like they just said go wild with all that misinformation stuff right on their platforms.
What does it actually mean, for like normal people?
Yeah.
And even more so for like businesses that need these platforms to survive.
Think of it this way, like for years, Meta has tried to be that nice guy, right? Connecting businesses and people, they're like the bridge, but bridges need like trust, right? And when you can't trust what's going across the bridge, it starts to feel shaky,
This author we're looking at today said it felt like their feed just became like a minefield of fake stuff, like overnight.
Wow.
And they even like questioned if a post from Zuckerberg was real or some kind of deep fake.
Wow.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
Yeah, that feeling of what's real. That's the core issue. If users start to doubt everything, they lose trust. And then where does that leave businesses? The ones who put all their effort into Facebook and Instagram.
It's like that whole thing with Ratner Jewelers, remember?
Yeah.
The CEO makes one dumb joke about his stuff being crap, and bam, the whole company like implodes.
Yeah.
It's crazy how fragile a reputation can be.
Absolutely. And these days, with everything online, that damage can spread so fast. Think about small businesses, the ones using Facebook and Instagram ads. Now they're caught in this mess of misinformation.
So is this the beginning of the end for Meta? Is that what our source is saying?
Well, they're definitely ringing the alarm bells.
Yeah.
And they're not the only ones. A lot of people, from tech experts to those media watchdog groups, are really worried. This isn't just some debate. It affects real people's lives.
What about those fact-checking groups? What happens to them now? Like, their whole business depended on Meta, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, and makes you think about the power dynamics here. These groups were doing important work, keeping Meta somewhat in check. Now they're kind of left high and dry. It shows you how much power these tech giants really have.
This whole thing feels like we're in some alternate reality news cycle.
Yeah.
Like, remember what happened with Twitter?
Oh, yeah.
It basically blew up after all the changes Elon Musk made. Could that happen to Meta? It's a scary thought.
It's definitely a parallel. Twitter got flooded with misinformation and all that hate speech. Advertisers left and the platform lost tons of value. So could Meta go down that same path? It's a question worth asking.
So if I'm a business owner listening to this, I'm probably freaking out. What's the plan? What does our source say we should do in this new, unfiltered world?
They suggest two things. First, start looking at other places to advertise. Don't put everything on Meta. They specifically mention Reddit and Pinterest.
Reddit and Pinterest, huh? Okay. They've been around like forever, but I haven't really thought of them as like serious advertising spots.
Well, now's a good time to take another look. Reddit, for one, has like these super dedicated users, right? You have all those communities focused on certain things, and that's perfect for targeting ads. And Pinterest, it's all about visuals, which is awesome for selling products,
So basically, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Makes sense. What's the other thing they suggest?
The second part is more about how you think about all this. Be more picky, more critical of the stuff you see online. Yeah, Meta might not be checking facts anymore, but that doesn't mean we stop thinking for ourselves.
So we got to fact check Meta ourselves.
Exactly. Do your homework. Check different sources. Don't just believe everything you see, especially if you're making business decisions based on it.
This whole thing is kind of scary, It shows how much power these big tech companies have, not just online, but over like everything we know. Like they decide what's true, and now they're just letting anything through.
Yeah, and that's a dangerous thing. What happens when real and fake are so mixed up that we can't tell the difference? What happens to democracy, to our whole society?
Our source actually looks into why Meta did this, and it gets really interesting.
Right, on the surface, dropping fact-checking seems like saving money. Less people to pay, less costs, more profit, happy investors. Meta's been taking a lot of heat lately. The metaverse thing hasn't really worked out. TikTok is winning. And there are all those privacy issues. They need something good to happen.
So they do this. No more fact checking. Stock price goes up.
What happens when that excitement dies down? When all the bad stuff starts to happen?
Like those advertisers getting spooked by all the fake stuff, or users leaving because they just don't trust Meta anymore.
Exactly. Short-term wins could disappear fast if Meta's reputation gets messed up. And then they might be in even worse shape than before. They're taking a big risk, and the stakes are high.
It's like they're betting everything on nobody noticing the problems they have.
And that's what worries me. Because Meta might be okay, at least for a while, but the people who really get hurt are the users. The ones who depend on Meta for news, for connections, for their businesses. They're the ones who suffer the consequences.
It's like we're all in this big experiment that we never signed up for.
And that's why we got to be aware, be involved, talk about these things, and understand what's going on. Because the choices we make today, the platforms we use, the information we take in, it all shapes the online world we'll have tomorrow.
Our source ends with a question that makes you think. They wonder if all this meta stuff is just a bad dream. Like, will we wake up in a few months and everything will be back to how it was?
I wish that were true, but I don't think so. Things have changed. Even if Meta goes back, the questions they've raised about trust, about truth, about the power of these tech companies, those questions are going to stick around.
So what should our listeners do? What's next? Well, I think the big thing is we can't just sit back and take in whatever's thrown at us anymore. We got to be more active, think critically, and be smart about how we navigate this whole online world, especially when it's constantly changing.
Absolutely. We can't just assume everything we see is true. And that means getting our information from different places, questioning what we read, and being careful about which platforms we use. It also means supporting those independent voices, the journalists, the researchers, the fact checkers, all the people working hard to keep these tech giants in check.
It's like we're entering this new age of like digital smarts, where knowing how to think critically and understanding the media are survival skills.
Exactly. Think about it. If we were suddenly back in the Wild West, we wouldn't just trust everyone we met, right?
Right.
We'd be careful, ask questions, learn to read the signs, and trust our gut. The online world's the same. We got to have the tools and knowledge to navigate it safely.
So while we wait to see what happens with Meta, I guess our homework is to do some exploring ourselves. Maybe check out those other platforms like Reddit and Pinterest, see what they're all about.
And don't forget about those newer platforms like Bluesky. They're still pretty new, but they could be a good alternative to the big guys. It's exciting to see how things are changing and how these new players might change the whole online world.
We've talked about a lot today, from Meta getting rid of fact-checking to what it means for us online and for the future of information itself. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's important to have these discussions to really think about these complicated issues and try to understand this digital world that's always changing.
Well said. So to everyone listening, keep those thinking caps on, stay curious, and join us next time for another deep dive into the stuff that matters.
Until then, stay informed, stay engaged. The future of the internet might just depend on it.